ID Ventures, Invest Detroit. So Patti is, I will introduce, and then if I mess things up, you can kind of catch me. So Patti is most amazing. She is the managing director at ID Ventures. She was at Arsenal Ventures prior to that, has had like a really long career in tech and investing. She's on a million boards, like so many amazing things. She's on our advisory board, super helpful. Always someone you can kind of like bounce ideas off of, and has like really great insight. And she's also on Michigan Venture Capital Association's board. So I've known her for a long time. And then, yay! And you are calling in from Petoskey, Michigan.
Yes, I escaped the Detroit for a few days and coming back today, but it's been really nice up here in Petoskey.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like the air is so like clean up north. I can't wait until we can like I have some plan for the week of 4th of July to go north. And so I'm like, every year I'm like, it's going to be so glorious.
Well, it was 32 degrees this morning, so it's beautiful, but it is still cold up here.
True. Yeah, that is true. The water is always like freezing. I went to Isle Royal one year, and it was like, I was like, oh yeah, like it'll be great. You just like jump in Lake Superior. It's going to be like I was in 8th grade. And so in my mind, I was thinking like, oh, it's going to be this totally picturesque time. I like stepped 1 foot in the water and I could not feel it for like a week. I was like, okay. And it was August at the time. So I was just like, wow, this is real cold. But cool. Yeah. Well, you must be insane busy because you have so many things going on. So I will start the official question asking. So I'm a big fangirl of Invest Detroit, and I feel like it's been so cool just how you guys have like this really comprehensive set of programs that you have to support the community through like all of the different avenues that Invest Detroit works through. So through ID Ventures, you have a tech startup stabilization fund. So if you could just kind of give us an update about like how that's going, why you launched it, and just a little update about that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So when the crisis, so about the March timeframe, we started to see programs starting to think about Main Street. How do we support retail businesses? How do we think about restaurants? What's going to happen when everything shuts down? Our team really said, okay, well, what's the work we're doing? What's going to be the impact to our companies? And our fear was it's so important to support Main Street, absolutely, but we can't forget the investment that the state and the region has made in building a tech infrastructure to diversify the economy. So we have spent millions of dollars investing in accelerator programs and fund to funds, and just all the startup ecosystem events, and just really trying to make sure that we had a really robust startup ecosystem. And so our concern was that if we didn't think about sort of some of the companies and being in a fragile state with having to shut down, if they had labs or they were manufacturing, what was going to happen to these companies? So Martin Dober and I approached the state and said, is there a possibility to put together a startup-focused fund in which we can help shore up companies for a month, 2 months, just to ride out the crisis and allow them to start growing again when things got back to normal?
Yeah.
The state
and then the PPP fund, like the Paycheck Protection Program fund. Yep. I know that originally that was something that was a lot of venture-backed companies were precluded from like participating in, but then I thought something had changed, but then I recently saw something else that was saying like, no, actually like tech companies aren't qualified for that. Is that part of the reason why you guys started this, or are they now able to access that funding?
So when we did start it was really unclear whether they would be able to participate in that program.
Still pretty unclear.
Yeah. So we have a fair amount of companies in our portfolio that
I think that you're a little bit frozen. Either that or I'm a little bit frozen. Oh no. Okay. Let me text Patti really quick just to see.
Have applied and have received funds. I think. All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, I was like, wait, okay. I was like, I'll just text her real quick. One moment. No. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
here. All right.
Yeah, you like froze right as you started.
Oh,
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So we have a lot of companies that took advantage of the program, PPP program. I think where we're really uncertain right now is whether those companies are going to have to repay those loans. So the guidance on whether I think the guidance was pretty clear that they were eligible, but whether they're going to receive forgiveness or not still is really murky. And so I think the companies should be planning they're going to have to pay it back, and if they're getting forgiveness, then fantastic. But yeah.
I feel like that's how a lot of small businesses are kind of reacting, like, okay, well, we're not totally sure, but we need it. So, but yeah, okay, keep going.
Yeah, and the payroll protection program for the companies who were able to take advantage actually leverages nicely with our fund. It's a small fund, $3 million. We had 200 companies apply. About 100 companies were actually eligible, so met the initial requirements, being mostly Michigan-based, being a tech startup of some kind, having more than one employee, being on a growth trajectory, those type of things. So we moved 100 into our phase 2 screening, and now we're starting to process those companies. So we've got about 100 companies, likely only be able to fund 50 or 60 of those companies. And the checks are not super big. They're meaningful. For many companies, it's a month or two of runway. Sorry, that's my Walshie.
Oh, that's fine. I'll probably have children that run in a second here. They'll be like half naked. So it's like dog barking is like.
That's my other dog.
Oh, he's like a little mangy guy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah. Well, I was just.
Yeah. So we can only fund about 50 or 60 companies. It's a small fund. We are trying to secure some more dollars that might give us the ability to do some extra runway, but it is limited. So combined with the payroll protection program, that really does give companies more the 2 to 3 month runway that we are originally hoping for. So I think the combined where it's possible is a nice combination, where it's not, again, where we can shore up companies here in the state, just some additional runway for them to keep their operations going. Why it takes time just to get back to normal. We don't know when normal's gonna happen, but at least we're starting to see signs that business is getting done. Even remotely, my companies are starting to see their sales pick back up and starting to see kind of renewed business activity.
Yeah, as everybody's kind of like, oh, okay. Like I was sharpening sticks to fight zombies for like the first 3 weeks. And I was like, so we're not gonna fight zombies. Okay, that's not a thing. Okay. And so I've got like 60 sharpened sticks in my garage just in case. But but yeah, so it's like after the first few weeks, I do feel like I sense a lot of people just within like the startup and small business community kind of being like, okay, this is going to be the situation for a little while. Let's resume the activities that we can. I feel like you guys too are like really well positioned to run a fund like that, just because you're so for those of you at home that don't know, Invest Detroit is like one of the most active investors in Michigan. And so it's funny because anytime I'm like doing any research report and I'm like, oh, who are the investors? Oh, Invest Detroit is okay. Like, who are the investors in this? Oh, Invest Detroit. Okay. And so I feel like you guys do have like a really good sense of, beyond just like you and Martin being really integrated into the community, is like that you have a really good sense of what is going on in the landscape of the entire entrepreneurial ecosystem, from like up north to southeast Michigan, west Michigan. So it does seem like you would have a really good. There's no question really here. I'm just kind of fangirling off to myself. But But I
Well, I
do
think
like, like,
you raise a good point in terms of for the community out there. This is a statewide fund,
yeah,
and even though we're based in Detroit and our name is Invest Detroit, we fund across the state. We've made over 130 investments. We have companies in the UP. We have companies in um, Grand Rapids, and you just all across the state. So
yeah,
our this fund is supporting, and our regular funds do support companies statewide. It's really about finding the and identifying the teams that are going to help really grow the next generation of big companies here.
yeah. Love it. Okay, I'll go to the next question. um, so Invest Detroit Ventures, as I just said, was one of the most active early stage investors in Michigan. And I imagine you guys are doing a lot of follow on investments to support your current portfolio companies during this time and then even after this time. So, what are some of the things your firm is going to be focusing on as we kind of come out of the pandemic?
Yeah, so like most funds, we did have to step back a little from our new investment pipeline just to make sure our current portfolio was supported. So, trying to put in place programs and connectivity and making sure that folks were aware of the things like the PPP and what other available options might be there. The TSSF fund, so the Tech Stabilization Fund, is for the next 4 weeks is going to be our primary focus. Our goal is just to have that fully deployed in the next month. And then we're going to start moving back into normalcy. So while follow on will continue and supporting our existing companies, always a top priority. But I do feel we'll be able to get back to our new investment pipeline. And we're starting to see a good funnel start to develop in terms of companies that are potential new investments. So we'll really start trying to get those companies moved into our diligence process and into our portfolio, probably starting the June timeframe in which we'll start ramping that back up. So
And that's
we are.
to like the common sentiment, I think, among like a lot of venture capitalists is that they like have, yeah, they had to turn to the like helping portfolio companies for a bit, but it's not like they're not feeling confident enough to continue investing like in the near term uh, new companies.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. There are different types of companies and affected in different ways. So, um, certain SaaS companies are just operating as normal, or if you're fortunate enough, you have a company that really suits the virtual world, right? If you're
Yeah,
invested in Zoom, right?
yeah, exactly.
That'd be great. So I think and there's some, we have a company where the transition to work to home, suddenly they were able to do a ton of research from home. And so being able to use their genomic database suddenly made, they saw a
Oh
ramp
yeah,
up in activity. Mi Padrino is another interesting one. They do quinceanera planning in the Latino community, and all these people went home. I'm like, oh my gosh, their event planning, their business is gonna,
yeah.
really struggle. And what they found was, wow, people are home and they have nothing better to do than plan their quinceaneras.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
their volume of activity went way up. So I think there's just a different startups are impacted in different ways. And so I think there's still a lot of great investment opportunities out there. And so, like most funds, there we do have to be cognizant of the time. Like it's going to take a little bit more time when things are virtual, but overall, people are seeming to manage through web conferencing and WebExes and Zooms pretty well.
Yeah,
So it's going to take a little longer to build relationships, but it's still possible. And so that runway is important. And again, being cognizant of which there are some segments that are just continuing to steam roll ahead, and being able to continue investing in those types of deals.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Um, Okay, my next question. I'm like loving like the like production, I'm just like, I'll click on it so that it appears at the bottom of the screen. Very, very
I
high
like
tech.
it's very techy. Yeah.
I know, yeah. Except for the thing that because I'm using the free version, that thing just like circulates constantly.
Stay
I'm
home.
like,
Stay
which I'm
home.
actually surprised that they like that's all that they are restricting on when you don't have to pay for this thing. So thank you, Be Live. Um, so you were a sponsor of the 2020 Detroit Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Report. Shout out. Um, and if you are to think forward a year to the 2021 report, which will be releasing in sort of the same time frame next year, in the spring of 2021, what are some of the changes in the landscape that you think that we're going to see? I'm going to watch this later too for context when I'm doing that report.
So I am gonna give you a shout out here. I think doing this ecosystem report is really important to the community so that we have benchmarks. Yes, there's a pat on the back. To really hold ourselves to metrics in terms of how is this ecosystem really growing? Are we
Yeah.
investing enough? What else do we need to do? And if you don't have the benchmarks, it's really hard to do. So thank you for being a leader and providing that report. It's important,
Yeah.
and that's why we
You
support it. Yeah. So on so clearly we're going to see some vulnerable companies go out of business over the next year, right? That's just going to happen, unfortunately, and it would have happened regardless of the crisis or not. Maybe this speeds it up a little bit for some companies. So that's a small negative or big negative if it's your company. So, but that is we'll see that happen, and we'll see that. But I also think that this has given a lot of people time at home to think about starting up their own businesses. So I do think we're going to start to see a surge of new companies come into the ecosystem over the next year or two because people did have time to step back, did have time to think about what their priorities were, what problems they wanted to solve, and spend some time on developing those business plans. Time often is the most limited resource that people have, and with the pandemic, I think people have been able to get a little bit more time. And so I'm pretty bullish on how we'll see the startup ecosystem rebound in the next 12 to 18 months, because I do think there's opportunities, right? I think we
Yeah.
all have seen, it's not perfect from working from home yet, but it's doable. And so, and where are the connections, or what are the things that can be optimized, and what are the tools, or what are the different services that people can offer to, kind of, I think we're going to live into a reality where we don't go exactly back to normal again. And so I think that opens up a lot of entrepreneurship
Yeah. I think
things
you're
to solve.
totally right about that too. That about like just people's time at home to think about their business, like people who are starting businesses. 'Cause I know certainly for us, like I'm kind of like, so now what do we want to do here? And you had like those 3 weeks when I was sharpening the sticks, I was like
Yes.
thinking a lot about
Zombie
like,
business. Yeah.
okay, like exactly, like, should I focus on this? Should I focus on that? Should I focus on this? And then I think there was like some refinement period of where you get like this new sense of like, okay, here's how I want to proceed forward. I think this is going to be more of a long-term thing. These things might not be possible for the next 2 years or something, like there's going to be some level of uncertainty, and here's what we want to do. And I think too, like even if you look back, I'm just thinking about like when in the MVCA report, if you look at the most recent one that we just released, like, man, 3 weeks ago, that's it. Like I was like, what? I thought it was like 3 months ago when we released that 3 months ago. That's something that when you look at 2008, you kind of are like, eek, all the stuff hit the fan like in 2008, and you saw a dip in 2009 with a lot of investments and a lot of venture capital activity and startup activity. But then like from there, people were like if they're laid off, like during the whole recession period, you saw like this huge increase in investment in startups and in the number of startups starting. The number of startups
Launching,
starting.
yes, launching.
Wide vocabulary here on Facebook Live. So like the number of startups, the amount invested, like all of those metrics really from 2009 through 2015 were like up and to the right, as people like to say. And so I do think that is something that we will see, maybe not in 2021, but I bet by 2022, like that will really be clear that the people's time at home like developed some really solid businesses, and a lot of like huge like Duo Security started in 2009. Fact checked someone. So I think like that'll be really awesome. But
I think there'll be a lot of positive coming out of this, and we need that as a community, right? This has hit a lot of people hard personally and professionally, and I think being able to look into the future and knowing that there is opportunity created in sort of hard times, and being able to look forward to that, I think is important right now.
Yeah, totally. So I guess we'll end this on like a fun note. Is there anything really fun that you've done in the last, like, how many weeks have we been inside? 7 weeks? Anything like crafts or, I mean, not that I'm getting a ton of crafts done, but like, has there been a craft or like a fun, like party or activity or like anything that you guys have done?
So I would say my biggest personal thing is, so I was really into like Pilates reformer. I'd just gotten into it last year, and when the gym shut down, I was like, no. But I got into yoga, so every morning I do between a half hour and an hour of yoga, and it's transforming. So it's not super exciting, but I just love it.
Do you use like some subscription service or anything like that, or are you just doing it on your own?
So Peloton had a 90-day free trial. They went from 30 to 90 days. So I'm still on my free trial. Don't tell them, but I'm probably going to subscribe after, because it is actually really good.
Have one of those bikes or the treadmill?
Oh, no, man. But they have strength and cardio and outdoor running, and and probably the nicest thing is my eldest daughter and I have been doing a run every day together. So just connecting with your teens is typically haven't had that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so awesome. Well, cool. Yay. Well, it's so good talking to you. I love seeing your face. I
miss you.
Missing everybody, but cool. And then I will hopefully talk to you again super soon. And thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you, Emily. It was fun. I appreciate being on.
Good to see you. Okay.
Right. Bye.